I think he was.
I don't know. Last time it was, I think I was 94
kilos.
Yeah. That was a bit back as well.
I'm 73 today.
Oh,
you've got to remember he's a short ass.
I am about this tall, so you know.
I was 72 when I was doing well, so that was quite a while back.
I was 68 when I was swimming well.
When was that?
So
83.
19, yeah, something like that, mate. I think you're about right.
When you were swimming well, I don't remember those days. So like about 8 British swimmers have been sent like swimming jacuzzis to like.
Not those hydro things that you swim against.
But I don't think.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, I don't think the jet's fast enough because they're all wearing bungees as well as using the propulsion. So
so I went the Suffolk show, like big, it's farm basically show, like, and there was the company that makes them was there, and I just went and had a look just for a laugh really, and they're like, oh, it starts at $5,000, and they priced them based on 100 pace.
Is this was that called Endless Pools, that one?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I think there are 2 different systems. So you have the ones that all the British swimmers are basically getting, which is called Jacuzzi Swim and Spa, which I don't believe the jets are powerful enough in there to sort of even push them. So they're having to put bungees on, whereas the Endless Pools, I think they do get up to apparently 59 or 56.
Yeah, so they told me just under 60.100s.
Yeah.
Which is, you can train on that.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't be able to do that anymore.
No, me neither. unless we're talking yards, in which case I might be just about able to do that.
I'll get the one.
Actually, there's no turns.
Imagine having like all that water. I've never used an endless pool, but I can only imagine it's not fun having water against you and having a bungee pulling you back. Like
I don't think it's anything like swimming.
No,
it doesn't feel right. I'm guessing you get used to it, but it doesn't feel the same at all.
If you've swum in the sea before, it's basically just swimming into a wave.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of our Dive-In Talk Show. Today we've got Josh back on, and we're joined. I'm going to start again because this dries another.
Hey, this is what you signed up for.
Okay.
This call is scheduled to be 6 hours if everything runs smoothly. Oh dear.
I got retake.
And we've also got Caeleb Hughes. He was a Team GB swimmer for quite some years, swimming all things from open water down to relays in the pool. And, I think today's topic, we're going to talk a little bit about open water swimming. But I think the first thing I wanted to bring up with Caeleb was the time he raced Caeleb Dressed.
Is this World Juniors?
Yeah, World Juniors, yeah.
World Juniors. Well, how do I put this? He spanked me off the dive, pretty much. But actually, I can't actually, like, in terms of the only thing about the race, we were so sort of involved in sort of, I guess, our own team performance and our own sort of tasks in hand, because I think in that team we had Matthew Johnson, James Guy, Max Stitchfield, and then myself. I think the order we swam it in was Jono, Max, me, and then James. And so the plan was basically, I think we came off of European Juniors, so we won that, and we missed the European Junior record because the guy who I think was Alex Dunk we had in there prior, we missed the junior record by I think 0.01 or something ridiculous. And we moved over to World Juniors, and obviously we were sort of favourites / third favourites with Australia and America. And so we had from Australia Mac Horton, which obviously is still a pretty big name now, and he was basically you could call the dog's bollocks when we were at World Juniors, because he won I think 8 gold medals there and absolutely cleaned everyone out. But anyway, we were also focused on basically our own individual things. You didn't know who specifically were racing from the other teams. All I remember was just trying to stick back to my race plan, which at that day and age I could hold a fairly decent sprint. It wasn't as good as when I was later on in that period, but I had to come back hard in terms of I did my third I think my third length was almost my second fastest length. So I did like something like a 27 on my third 50 split, and came back probably another 27. But I just remember this kid like absolutely flying off the start. But yeah, that was probably, it's quite a weird one when you look back at it now. You go, well, in terms of my relay split was actually against Mr. Dressel himself, and unfortunately I wasn't in that 100 race because I was nowhere near doing those races at that stage in my life, because I think it was Carl Chalmers who won it at World Juniors as well in the 100, and Dressel came second, I think, at that World Juniors. But
no, it was
stuff.
I don't think Chalmers was there. Chalmers is a bit younger than us, so
is he not 90?
No,
is he 96?
Chalmers is younger than us. So just for perspective, by the way,
yeah,
that was the 4x200 freestyle relay at the 2013 World Juniors. Team GB did win that. Australia was second, and the USA were third. But it was actually the 50 was won by a guy called Luke Percy, who no one's heard of since, I don't think, or I definitely haven't. Dressel did win the 100 in 48.9 back then. So yeah, there was some fast swimming going on. But yeah, definitely the star of that meet was Matt Corton, and I don't know if anyone, based on them results, would have thought that Dressel would be the household name of everyone who raced at that meet back then. Again, I don't know if you realised at the time when you dived in on the third leg against him. I'm guessing you went in pretty neck and neck, because then James Guy just cleaned up on the anchor, didn't he?
Yeah, well, I don't think we came in. We were close enough neck and neck in terms of when we dived in and when we finished. I think our splits were points off of each other.
Yeah.
In terms of, I think I went at 148.9 or something like that back then. I don't know. I can't remember. He was either 48.91 or some in that region. But all I remember was that we had James going in, and we had to be at least 2 seconds or a second ahead of Australia in order to, even though James, you look at him now and you go, well, he's won world championships and all that. Back in then, we had Matt Horton, who just dropped to 145 in the 200 just for giggles. So we were like, we needed to sort of get James ahead just a little bit. And obviously James put, I think it was a 146 or 147. I can't even remember. It was something silly. But Mac was coming back quick. And so luckily the Americans didn't have a fourth swimmer, and so they didn't come really anywhere after that. But I do remember getting out the pool and being like, oh, it was the other Caeleb, but the one who spells his name wrong at least. And so I was like, oh, good race, mate. But yeah,
definitely an interesting one. Back years before everyone was established on the senior scene. Your senior career from that really definitely went into the longer stuff. And I guess individually you were still probably better at the 1500 back then even, and stuff like that. But you definitely moved into the open water swimming scene a little bit more frequently after that. This call come about because I was going through, Facebook prompts you with these old pictures that pop up. And it was 10 years ago yesterday that me and Caeleb raced at the 5K open water at the East Region Championships. And back at this point, I was pretty useless. And I just swam things that not many people did, so I had a chance of medaling. So even though I come second at the East Region Championships behind Caeleb, I'm pretty sure over the 5K distance, I think I was 10 minutes adrift, which is absolutely atrocious. So
I don't even know what was happening in that, mate. We used to go down as I think it was like basically just an East Region like barbecue gathering. And everyone used to just...
There's a picture of me afterwards with a burger in my hand and some trophy that I being the only person in my age group. And I was just super happy with myself. I'd finished 5K. I'd beaten no one.
5K is a ridiculous distance to swim. And I know that's not even like the furthest race like you guys have done, but yeah, no, not for me. I never even did a 1500. The furthest distance the longest race I ever did was 8 under 3.
Was that at regionals as well?
Counties, because we were fourth.
Counties.
Yeah, basically.
I remember.
Dave remembered that, or Dave found out that the 800 free that year was on my birthday, and it was like, we got to do it then. And yeah, and you know how it is. You just end up doing it. That was okay. I didn't mind it, to be fair. It was just because you never done one. I'd never done one before. I just felt like I was just swimming up and down. You know,
That's
there's no.
basically that.
Yeah, I can't imagine doing a 10K. That'd be horrific.
Yeah, well, it was back when I, when I got a bit older. It did start to feel like that. I started counting my age actually go up when I was there.
Do you have like a strategy with a 10K then? Is it like broken up in the same way you'd like break up a 400 or 15 or whatever?
As weird as it, so in terms of, as Sonny said, I was originally obviously 1500 longer distances, but then obviously when I was younger, I did basically everything from 100 to 1500 and every race in between. But the program sort of got poached off of the 1500. So if you did well in the pool 1500, you sort of got pulled into open water a little bit. And then if you did well in open water, they would just sort of pull you into it. And so my first 10K was actually in Eilat, in Israel. Like, I don't even know what I was doing there. It was just, here you are, you're in it, European, I think, Len Cup. And it was literally just, oh yeah, you're going to do 10K. You've never done 10K in your life before. You're in the sea. And all I remember is just like swimming hard and being sort of battered the whole way through. And like every lap, I think it was 4 laps, every lap there was like this jellyfish that was underneath the water that was like purple. And I just, every time I got to the same point, was like, oh, where's that jellyfish I was going past? As weird as I could go, well, you shouldn't really be looking for that in a race. It was the only thing that drove me around to get around the next lap to wonder where it was. Like
Find
if
it again.
Closer to the surface or not.
Yeah.
Which was quite weird because I think at the end of that race I came 6th overall, and that was behind. I think Tom Sunter came either 5th or something, and at that point Tom Sunter was on the European team and all that, and so I somehow did well on the 10K, but I think I was just so young that, well, lactic acid and all that other type of stuff is just, it's not there.
It's a myth. So. Yeah, it's a myth.
It's a myth. It was like, what do I need to do after this? And people were like, oh, you need to swim down. I was like, nah, I feel fine. Let's carry on.
I'm golden. Yeah. Give me a burger and go home.
But no, the plan with, like, in terms of when we went on to like, how do we do the 10Ks and all that afterwards, when I got a bit more senior in that type of position, we all individually had different race tactics. So you go from, like, obviously Jack is still swimming open water there, to Toby, who's also still swimming. We'd all have different type of ways we'd swim it. I always used to be, I'd called myself basically either the spotter, and so I'd sit at the front of the pack, so either 1st, 2nd, 3rd, maybe 4th, and I'd basically sit there the whole race. And one of the reasons is either people decide to sort of relax behind you and just sort of stay where they are, and the front people technically make where the pack goes, because as much as you're following a course line that there's no like line off the bottom of the pool, obviously. So the people at the front sort of make sure that you're going the right way. And if they're not, then you can have like splits in the pack if people think, oh, actually this is the right way. And that's where it gets a little bit different in how people might approach the race. But I was normally what I'd call a spotter, was with the person who's sitting one of the fronts, just making sure we're going the right way. And it was just basically, I'd sit at like a threshold the whole way, but not hard enough that I'd sort of be worn out by the back end. So I'd almost pick it up when you'd find the people that would sit at the back of the pack completely just relaxing through everyone's draft, pulling some people's legs, hanging on them, whatever they do. And then it gets to like the last lap and it just ramps up. I think we did the splits once. We were going averagely, normally it was about 68 to 66, I think, per 100 over an open water time period. The whole way around. But our split times would be, the first lap would be something like 68, 69s. The second lap and the third lap would be something like 110s or 109s. And then the fourth lap all of a sudden drops to 104s or 103s, just the whole way for 2.5K. And it's just, it just goes from absolutely like basically swimming easy to just everybody just having a fist fight and trying to ball out the last race.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Still hoping to one day get to a point I can swim an easy 110.
Yeah, no. Back to 2.5K after doing another 5K.
Up to the 104s to 2.5K. But,
if I do a dive in 110, I'll be happy.
You joke about this. I bet you could. I've had Josh for 2 weeks. We had Josh visited here for 2 weeks, and he barely broke him. On like the second session, I made him do a stand-up 100. He was like barely 59. 10 swims later, we had him going 55. Mate, come and spend 2 weeks with me.
It is mad how quickly you do get some level of feel or fitness or whatever it is back.
Yeah.
You know, obviously sprinting is comes a bit quicker. I mean, I don't think if I'd have done an 800 freestyle that day, Sonny, I'd have finished.
No, I'm not promising after 2 weeks of swimming with me, I'll have you in 10K shape.
No.
I don't think
I'll ever be there.
I used to like the open water stuff, not just because no one else done it, but we had some good days out. I remember me and Josh and one of the other Ipswich swimmers, we went to like Lakeside and done. That
was my only ever open water race, and it was a 750 meter freestyle open water, and I was like, you boys did 1500, didn't you? I think.
Charlie Smith.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not doing that. Yeah, Caeleb, that was Charlie Smith.
Oh, Charlie.
And yes, did 750. Enjoyed it. 750 meters. I would not have wanted to do one more lap, let alone, 10 more laps, 15 more laps.
Remember at the end there was like some relay events, like me, you, and Charlie done like 70 meters each, and some round like the pontoon.
No, I don't remember that at all.
You don't remember?
No.
Erased from his memory.
There was a relay of it. It was like a sprint open water relay that had no organisation.
Did we win?
Yeah, we won energy gels and t-shirts. That was the best thing about open water events. The freebies.
Prizes. Yeah.
It's freebies. Like I remember once there was at Dorney Lakes, and it was sponsored by Red Bull. And I'm not joking.
Oh, for God's sake!
300 cans of Red Bull. Like we were just walking off with crates of Red Bull and sticking them in the car. I'm not exaggerating. We had a year.
No, also, you did go behind the Red Bull tent, lift the back up, and start dragging crates out the back.
This is where it starts opening up.
Yeah, this is why there's not such good sponsorship now at events for swimmers, because Sonny's just absolutely rinsed everything.
Sonny's stolen it all.
Yeah.
So he's free prize giveaway once he got to 5k subs as well.
Yeah, you get a crate of Red Bull that expired in 2013.
So 200 more subscribers, and I'm giving away a Arena Carbon Core FX in Army Green, not yet seen, not even by me, but men's and women's suits giveaway. There you go, little plug.
Cool. Could be the comeback on, I tell you. How do I enter, Sonny?
Your size as well, so we could get size 34s if necessary.
Amazing.
So, yeah.
That should be actually a competition. See how many retired swimmers can get into their original swimming suit size.
So when I came to Sonny's last year, I took some suits with me because he wanted to do the tiered suit thing. So I just took all the suits I had because I got a couple that he didn't. And I had a pair of Jacket JO5s from back in the day, and these were from when I was young, and they were 22. I didn't get in them, needless to say. It did not.
Spence, as if you was ever going to have got in them.
I tried, didn't happen. Just blistered up all my knuckles, didn't I? I glued your Mizuno back together and got in that though.
Yeah, to be fair, the last actual swim I did was an arena league. I sort of came back because, I think Hatfield was struggling in our members, and they're struggling when they call me up, and. So I popped down and I was like, I think at that time I was working for one of those swimwear brands. Sonny did the suit review, the QSW thing.
Yeah.
So I had got a free pair of them. I managed, I think, to get into a size 28. But I was managed. I was this
it was part of you at
24,
that point.
26.
Yeah.
It was part of me. And I was like, I don't think it's coming off afterwards, but I'll just keep it on.
Yeah, they're made
really well.
Factory is Finis, A3, Blue 70.
Yeah.
There's a few other brands that elude me. Engine Australia make the same. OEM designer.
I was hoping that they were very similar to the Finis Vapors, because those were literally my favourite pair of suits that ever got released.
Yep.
Considering I never really wore many suits. I think, what did I have in total? I wore Speedo, lasers, either the second gen or something like that. And
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? So Caeleb was always known, and I'm guessing was a parent's favourite as well, because when we all used to swim in the same age groups, and you'd ask your parents when you're sort of 13, 14, you'd be like, oh, I need a new suit, I want a new suit. And your parents would be like, well, Caeleb doesn't need a suit, because Caeleb would only race in Speedos at that age. So yeah, my parents would be like, well, Caeleb doesn't need a suit. And I'll be like, how do you expect me to beat Caeleb if I don't have a suit? And it was all that, that sort of went on for a few years. But eventually you did succumb, didn't you, to the jammers?
Yeah. I was there trying to convince my mom, give me a suit. I'm not joking, no. I don't know why I never used to actually race in them. As weird as it did sort of become like my type of trademark when I was younger.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, 100%.
It's sort of stuck with me. Like anyone in our
Were they like FS1s as well?
No. I had 3 pairs of different ones. So I had an arena pair, which were basically were the power skins.
Yeah.
Arena made a power skin version of literally just in Speedo form. And so I had a pair of them. I think they cost like 35 quid as well. And then I had a pair of Speedo Aqua Blades, if anyone remembers
that. Was the one. Yeah.
Those were like the mint, because they used to go different lines, and that's all I cared about. And so I got those. But in terms of the only reason I actually started racing in, well, I say the only reason, the only time that I actually started racing in jammers was at the regional meet in when I was 15, I think. Yeah, I was 15. Right. And basically my trunks snapped. They stopped obviously making them, all the race Speedos. Yeah. They literally stopped making them, so you couldn't get any more. And I had, I think, my final pair, and I was like tightening them, and the string just snapped off, and I was like, bugger. And so obviously you go back to the round and you go, well, I think it was at that time that also being quite senile about things being FINA approved, or because of it was post 2009 period, and I was like, oh, you need to obviously, otherwise you're not going to be sort of have a registered time or whatever. You're not going to actually be allowed to swim, especially in the East region where you get some of the officials which will just be pains in the arse. So I had to go to that little swim shop just around the corner in the back, and I was like, well, what have they got? And so that was actually my first race in a pair of jammers, as weird as it was, which did feel like completely weird on my first dive in, because I snapped them from warm up into racing. So literally I hadn't ever raced or touched a pair in my life, and best dive I've probably ever done, but yeah.
And then when you go to open water swimming, you wear bodysuits and wetsuits and all sorts. And so, if I'm not mistaken, for open water swimming, if the temperature is low enough, you're allowed to wear a wetsuit. For FINA.
Yeah. So in terms
of events.
Yeah. So in terms of in FINA's rules now, they I don't know if they've updated or changed it again, but prior 2000 and I'm going to say. Well, it was 15, it must be 2017 or something like that. Originally, the rules was if it was below below 16 degrees, there was no race on. Okay. And anything above 16 degrees, it's on, and deal with it in terms of you had the full body thing, but that's all you were allowed to sort of wear. And then it obviously changed on later, and they changed it to that if it was below 20 degrees, it's an option to wear a wetsuit. And if it's below 18 degrees, it's non-optional. You have to wear a wetsuit. And if it's below 16 degrees, it's cancelled. Yep. And if it's over 20 degrees, it's non-wetsuit. Which obviously you got to that point then where between the degrees of 18 and 20, everyone would wear a wetsuit anyway, because it's just that much quicker. Even if it's like in terms of there's so many issues obviously people were having with like shoulders and that, and the fittings of wetsuits, just because they're not really made to do those types of distances, and that type of race, it's just too thick a material. It's basically like an old Ian Thorpe suit, but they it's sort of, I think it pissed quite a lot of open water swimmers off, because people like we've acclimatized our bodies to actually sort of swim in that age range between 16 and 8 and 20 and would be comfortable, really. Obviously, when it got down to that 16 to the 18 degrees, there were certain swimmers that would sort of do a lot better in those degrees, because it's now actually cold water swimming, and well, you'd say the fatter swimmers normally did a little bit better, but that was sort of, I used to do quite well in the colder
See you come back.
Yeah. So I used to be quite good at like the colder temperatures, and the warmer temperatures it was negligible to me. It was sort of the same, it was just a bit warmer. But a lot of people struggled with the cold temperatures, and I think that's why FINA might have brought it in, and also maybe for a safety perspective. But now with wetsuits, and if it's a 20-degree race and people are wearing wetsuits, it's yeah, I think they're gonna, obviously we had one of those sad incidents with Van Crippen back in 2008.
Yeah.
Remember, but like, as weird as it is, the Dubai race, I think that's last year, was that a wetsuit swim? I didn't pay too much attention to what happened, the Doha race, but they had a freak weather change or something, and you can have this in terms of the temperatures of waters can quickly change if you have like a cold swell come in, and that will just automatically change to people of, oh, well, I'm going to have to wear a wetsuit because I won't be at the same type of race potential as somebody else if I don't. And so it's not really a decision of, oh, if it's 20 to 18, you have a choice. It's sort of a decision of, well, if it's 18 to 20, everyone's wearing a wetsuit because you're not going to pace it. And you might now, I think, have issues with people overheating in races and all that type of stuff. But obviously, as athletes, you sort of have to get used to that and sort of make sure that you know where the point is and how to actually deal with that. And I guess it's just another thing in water you have to deal with.
Yeah, I'd say, because I've worn wetsuits, I've worn the bodysuits you're allowed to race in, and wetsuits, they're fast because of how buoyant they are, but they feel horrible. Like, even though the swimming wetsuits have thinner material on the shoulders to try and give you mobility, they feel heavy. They feel horrible, and I can imagine it's a completely different race experience wearing a bodysuit or a wetsuit, and
it does restrict. I've only worn one once, but I did feel it totally restricted how I wanted to naturally swim.
The only thing I had with the wetsuit is obviously I used to surf a fair bit, and so I'd almost actually preferred my surf wetsuit to my racing wetsuit, just because it was a lot more comfortable. Well, I felt, just to move in. And I thought that would have actually played a bigger thing in terms of I would have liked wetsuits more. That was not the case. Like, I still didn't like wetsuits. The only reason I ever used a surf wetsuit was just obviously it's so cold in the UK in those temperatures that you need one. But like, even the things of kicking, like, it's so weird doing kick in a wetsuit than it is in a normal suit.
Well, your legs are in a different place in the water, aren't they?
They're just floating so much.
Yeah.
In terms of, you at least get that feel. I don't know if your shin, if you're kicking in the water. A wetsuit, you don't even feel that. It's just your feet just floating about doing pointless stuff. But yeah, I think I can imagine a lot of athletes were opposed to it, and then other athletes were with it. Obviously, I don't know, you go into the triathlon community and they all swear by wetsuits, but then, not to say anything about the triathlon community swimming.
It's different, isn't it? Let's just say it's different.
It's different.
Well, the truth would be they suck at kicking / swimming, and they need the buoyancy to get them from A to B. That would be the truth of the matter.
Yeah, it's not an optimal swimming stroke, is it? It's inefficient and crap.
I've coached my fair share of triathletes, and my God.
Well, there's a prime example. There is a prime example of a swimming stroke being proven to be better. Is like Lucy Charles moving over from swimming to triathlon, and she just absolutely kills everyone in the pool, in the swim, doesn't she?
I'm pretty sure she's quicker than the men.
Yeah, she does. She's not that far off, I think, the top men in swimming men as well. And what I find funny about it is, obviously, the company that I worked with last, they're a triathlon technically based company. And I obviously went and looked at what Lucy was doing, since she swam at Hatfield and all that with me. And I remember watching some like interview she's giving there. She's like world champion and all that type of stuff, and got the belt names and whatever. And she I think in one of the interviews she was like, triathlon's been very good for her in terms of her absolute fitness and all that. And I don't blame, like, in terms of she's done really well actually transferring over to that type of stuff. Like, I wouldn't want to run or cycle the distances she's doing, and she's done very well at it. And, well, hats off to her, she's done very well at it. But then in the interview, she was like, "Oh, I'm pretty sure also my swimming's got better since I've been there." And I was like, well, that's rubbish, because like she used to swim with us on like the open water teams and all that stuff as well. And I could compare at times and go, well, no, you're like a minute at least slower than when you were doing that. And I'm like, yeah, you probably think, oh, you got a lot more fitness and all that. But I think unfortunately, it's a trade-off between sort of being able to swim very well and also being able to run really well. And the complete balance doesn't really work out.
Not at all. It's also the prioritising the training times, because if you look at an Ironman or a half Ironman, you swim for under an hour, you're on your bike for 4 hours, and you run for 3 hours. So if you segmented your training based on how much of an Ironman you're doing each of the disciplines, you're going to be doing the most cycling, then you're going to be almost running as much, and then you're going to fit swimming in somewhere between. And when you look at someone like Lucy, who was a very class swimmer as a swimmer, she's probably got to train less swimming than any of the other Ironman as it is. Yeah. So I'd probably imagine a big bulk, even 75-80% of her training, this is purely guesswork, would be running and cycling. And she can almost get away with just how good she was at swimming. Let's face it, needs be, any of us three, you two haven't swum in however long, could get into a 3.8k swim quicker than most Ironmen. But you couldn't then get on a bike. Yeah. But that's just the reality of it. Like, even when I done open water stuff when I was, again, like 14, 15, I remember going into a 3.8k against most of the Ironmen, and I come out the water first or second. And this was at a time when you was beating me by over 3.8k, probably 6 or 7 minutes. So as a swimmer, you're miles ahead, and she's not going to be doing anywhere near the hours she was doing. No. If what was you swimming at your peak as an open water swimmer, Caeleb? 90k, 100k even?
Oh no! Like, as weird as this is going to sound, obviously there's some athletes that have gone and pushed on to those levels in terms of meters and that. But I think like the most I've ever done in a week was just over 80k.
Okay.
Which obviously people go, well, that's still ridiculously high. But obviously some other athletes, I think. So there's a French coach, I can't even remember his name, but Hector Pardo's moved over to. To in Nice, and that's where Marc-Antoine trains, also a guy called David Aubrey, Sharon Rovendale. So they're all with him. They all do that type of training, and it's just like meters. Like, it's just like eating cake. you get halfway through and you just got to unfortunately keep finishing, even if you're going to throw up. But like, I've only ever done the furthest in terms of it's like 80k weeks, and we used to push that in terms of that used to be our big blocks. But we were quite, you could say, very well drilled in the way that how we did the 80k would basically have to hit target paces the whole way through it. So it wasn't just a thing of just get in and do some slow meters and all that. It was unfortunately like 6k at least of, well, we're going to be holding 104s to 110s, and if you drop below a 110, we're going to add an extra 100 on or something like that. So it was
miserable.
Not very.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, in terms of if it was a good day, you'd actually feel really good about doing that session. But if you were like, I had so many days where I'd get to I'd end up just not making any of them and not any times. And like, my coach at that time was Kev Renshaw, and he would just be like, go home. It's just like, I just look at him and go, okay. It's just like absolutely broken, just can't do it anymore on that step. But I never did, in terms of the open water meters, I'd say as much as most people did. I did 80k weeks, which was our big weeks and what we'd throw through. But normally we'd actually only do about 60k to 70k all the way through, and then the big ones would be 80. But you'd get obviously those some sessions. Like, I remember the one Saturday morning, well, on the Friday night, we got told by Coach Kev, he was like, "Oh, just bring your like race suits in for the morning." Didn't say what we were doing. He's like, "Just be ready." You like, once your coach sort of says that to you, like, oh, what are we going to be doing?
Yeah.
Turn up in the morning, and and we normally had like pre-pool, so all your stretching stuff, and I'd walk through, and he just went, "Oh, don't bother stretching that. Just get in the pool and swim." And I think we ended up doing it was just swim the whole time for 2.5 hours. So we did like 12.5K, just straight swimming. Which you can. That's quite mind-numb, boring, but it was just things at that point you sort of needed to do.
Yeah, if I was ever told to bring a suit in, I'd thinking, 50 off the blocks and go home. That'd be beautiful.
Yeah, doing some race to 15s.
Just some breakout work. No,
Yeah. Not 2.5 hours solid.
Hours solid. Yeah,
just splash your face a little bit. Now I'm ready. Let's go home.
Yeah, I don't envy the open water, the distance life. You know, to be honest, 60K plus. This is uncharted territory for me. I don't know what would you reckon our peak? This was just as age groups. We probably peaked maybe a few 45, 50K weeks maybe. Ipswich.
Probably not. To be honest, probably 40K. I would think 40, 45. No higher than that.
Never big meterage, and these days I've seen 15 to 20K at a push. To be honest.
Well, you think that realistically, we'd probably have. I don't know.
When we're swimming 9 times, I reckon we hit over 40K regularly. But then 2 sessions, so then we're probably averaging 35, 40. 40
I reckon. But even, in terms of just main sets, we'd have like 24, we'd have 3 sets of 8 200s, wouldn't we? Or, we had 12 fours a couple of times. But it was never anything, we'd never have anything really stupid, would you?
No. It's funny because I was on a Q&A with Greg Troy the other day, and he's very much a believer in endurance training, and he thinks like just through when you're developing your aerobic capacity, you should be swimming anywhere between 50 and 70K. And like he's talking about 12 to 14-year-old girls, 15 to 17-year-old guys. This is for pool racing, for middle distance freestyle, medley, all of this sort of stuff. Not even 10K open water specialists, and I just thought that was staggering, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it's I don't know in terms of the amount of coaches I've come across, obviously in the swimming career I've done. Everyone's got obviously a different opinion on what's right and what's wrong, and and more you find a lot of coaches are actually leaning towards like a shorter type distance, more intensity, more specific, more targeted work, I'd say. And then you've got, I'd say the old-fashioned coaches, which are like, let's get some meters in, and it's very hard because I don't know which one as an individual ever worked for me, because I swam under Nick, and a lot of people would have thought Nick Juba, so he was Denmark coach for a couple of years, head coach over there, and obviously the Hatfield head coach for forever basically. And so I swam underneath him, and there, as weird as it sounds, I did pretty much a very mid-distance to a sprint-based, and chucked a couple of distance programs in there. And a lot of people obviously thought at that stage I was doing very distance work, because that was sort of where I was performing and where I was doing most of my targets. But I just remember I was almost coming in from, which most people will remember from me, is mid-bed swim squad under Vic Simpson there, and who used to be Vic's Metcalf, and Ash Morris, who's obviously the Dubai coach now.
Yeah.
And there I was doing, I'd say, solid meters, like getting in quite a few meters in quite old school training type stuff. And I did very well under Vix and Ash there. And then I moved on to Nick. And
but that reflected, didn't it? Doing the stuff you were doing at mid-beds, I think that went into your meet programs as well. Because as 3-day regions, you would do everything.
Literally. I look back at it now and I go, how? Because I got.
I'm not joking. It was literally like, I'd get out of a race. Me and Caeleb had just been in, and I'd be like, "Where's he off to?" Oh, he's in the next heat. He's got 400 IM, or just ridiculous. Like, I don't know how or why.
I never I don't know. I guess I was young, but I never looked at it as a impact in terms of doing a race beforehand. It was just like, oh, well, I've got to do another race, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But I got to the end of my swimming, sort of I think my last race at the Bucks, and oh gosh, I'd do one race in the morning and I'd be battered, and I'd be like, hanging, and I'll be like, I've only done 100 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll be crying and behind the block, like, please don't let me do another one and stuff. But yeah, in terms of the training programs, Nick cut me down to quite, I'd say, like a mid-base sprint program. I was doing quite a lot of high-intensity sprints and that type of stuff. And it sort of showed in terms of, I went from age 14 where I wasn't really doing any type of sprints in the races. And so, like, I remember, I don't think I used to make sort of the finals in the 100 freestyle when I was 14 at nationals and that. But then at age 15, I moved over to Nick, and I think I came second on the 100 free that year in the 15, 16-year-old age group. I think I lost to a guy called Jordan Barlow, who was from Liverpool. Yeah, but it was like such a long time ago. But in terms of, it was a weird way that I was training, but it worked for me. But both types of styles worked for me, and I've done so many different types of ways of training. I've always had very good results if I've just had a coach that sort of just, I could say, batters me, just kicks me into the ground and continues kicking me until I end through the other side. But I've had multiple ways of training, and I still, to this day, I couldn't say which was the best way for me to type of train. And I think, as much as it is, when we talk about training and how people should train, obviously I go, well, Greg's had a lot of swimmers behind his name, and the things he's doing is amazing in terms of, like, me just look at Caeleb Dressd's times, and it's enough to say, like, what is he doing? And you go, well, he also had like Ryan Lochte and all those other types of names where he's influenced a lot of people. And you go, well, he's obviously doing something right. But
absolutely,
then you also could look at Bob Bowman, and he goes, well, he's a completely different character. So I think it's more of an athlete-coach relationship, unfortunately, than it actually is anything to do with style of coaching. Because I think if that coach matches the athletes, as you guys could probably tell, if you had a coach that you thought, well, this is going to be better than actually doing that, you could, as much as he could give you absolute dog rubbish, and you'd probably do better than if you were doing something that was really actually productive with a coach that you thought, well, no.
But I think that kind of like summarizes how hard it is, because if you're, you're where you are and you can't look back and be like, that type of coaching or that type of coach worked best for me. If you're in a position where, let's say you're 17, 18, and you've been for the same club your whole swimming life, it's very difficult for you to then be in a position where you go, all right, well, that style would work better for me, so I need to move and go and do that. If you just don't know. And that's the thing with swimming, I guess, isn't it? You have to like do something for an extended period of time to actually work out if you're
sort of right
better in that. And, if you've been through it where you've had loads of different types and still aren't, not really sure, it does make it difficult to the point where I think there's no right or wrong attitude to it. I think some stuff will work for some people and some stuff won't work for other people. I know that, Sonny, I think it's fair to say you probably didn't gel, or you didn't click with the type of training you've had when you've been a club swimmer. I think that's fair to say.
I think to a degree, like, if you look at when I'm, before moving to Ipswich, it was all, nothing was very good in any way. It was not performance coaching or anything along those lines. And when I went to Ipswich, I got, from what I got drastically better very quickly. But then I think as I grew a little bit older, 17, 18 plus, it wasn't fitting the stuff I was wanting to do in terms of racing. But I definitely think it allowed me to then, when I swim now, if I hadn't have done them 5 years at Ipswich, I wouldn't be able to get away with how little I'm doing. And
yeah, of course,
being a bit more.
It's foundations, isn't it?
Yeah,
to a certain extent as well.
I think people might miss that as well. They might look back at a period of their swimming career and say, well, I wasn't swimming very well at that point, but it very much made them what they were able to become when they went somewhere else. And that's something that I definitely say when I coach. I want to make all my swimmers, wherever they go next, they're able to get faster. The coaches, where they end up going, look at them and go, these kids have been coached well-rounded. They've got good skills, good technique, good aerobic foundations. Like, I've got 6 of my kids here in Muscat are going back to the UK, or 4 going back to the UK, 2 are going abroad elsewhere. But of the ones going back to the UK, one's got a scholarship at Ellesmere, 2 are into the performance squad at Guildford. and one's been accepted into Royal Wolverhampton School. So they're all going to great programs. And I'd like to think in 6 months or in a year, when I talk to them coaches, they all say to me they were doing a good job, and they've been able to really, tap into what they've done with me and get much better because of that. And I think that's really important to look at. And I think that's why America does so well compared to the UK, because college coaches go around recruiting swimmers that they think are going to work in their program. And obviously there's guesswork involved, but if you look at me and you, Josh, like Josh, you swam at Ipswich, which was within a 30, 40, 50-mile radius, the best club. You couldn't go anywhere. Had you said at one point, I don't think my potential is going to be reached here, at 14, what was you ever going to do about it?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I was lucky to move to Ipswich and move to a better club and have that opportunity. And again, like you was probably quite lucky, Caeleb, in terms of, you landed on your feet with Biggs Wade and the mid-beds squads with two great coaches. Like, of them coaches, Ash is now the director of swimming at Hamilton and doing great things. He was very lucky that you just stumbled upon him during his junior career, and Vicky's obviously great as well. And then, why did you move to Hatfield? I don't think I've ever asked you.
Yeah, so in terms of, a lot of people actually don't know. I started off at Luton. Josh, my first regionals is actually with Luton, which now people don't even know about. Luton was actually a club back in the day, and we used to not be. Well, I used to have this vision when I was 9 and 10 that we were quite a good club. Obviously, when you grow up and you look back and you go, actually, we were dog. But I used to swim at Luton for 2 years, and talking about my Luton experience, I used to basically get kicked out of every session. I was that much of a pain in the arse to coach, as you can imagine. And
yep.
I swam at Luton for 2 years. I broke my arm. I smashed my elbow when I was at Luton. I actually had one of the coaches sort of say, "Oh, he won't come back from this," because I had to have my whole elbow reconstructed and pinned back together. And then that's when I moved over to after I still competed for Luton in regionals, and then that next year I moved over to mid-beds. And I only moved over to mid-beds because actually I went to a gala to do a race, and I was meant to have a coach from Luton there, and no one actually turned up, and I'm about 10 years old or 9, and that coach hadn't actually turned up, and Vix Metcalf actually took me over and was like, "Oh, he hasn't got a coach," and actually did my times and all that type of stuff for me when I was like 9 or 10 years old. And that was actually my reason why I went to mid-beds. Not even, I was actually looking for a program. It was just like, well, actually, Luton's, I'm getting kicked out of every session. I'm obviously not doing something, so we'll look to somewhere. And that's why I moved to mid-beds. The reason I moved to Hatfield was actually Vix was leaving as a coach from mid-beds.
I was pretty sure it was because she was leaving. Sure, but
so Ash left when I was, I believe, 13 or 12.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember exactly. I know I had him for 2 or 3 years. And so once Ash had moved, I still had Vix for another year, I believe. And things were going well. We're still doing good stuff, obviously winning nationals and that type of stuff. But she obviously, I think she was pregnant, so she was having a kid, and so she was moving on. And so we were then considering, what do we do in this situation? It's quite weird when you look back and you go, well, I was only 14 years old. At that time, it seemed like quite a big decision of what do I do or where do I go? And so we were literally considering everything. I was looking at things of Plymouth, looking at things like Millfield. And obviously, from our age group, literally all the boys were at Millfield. Literally everyone moved there. James Guy moved there. Fraser moved there. Anthony Lucas. I could probably list off all 8 top 10 in terms of the country, and everyone moved to Millfield. And so I was considering them, but we didn't have the funds at that type of time. We weren't too well off as a family at that point, and so it wasn't a question of even trying to get a scholarship to go there, because there was not even a chance of really be able to pay those fees. And so I had to look elsewhere. So I even looked at Stockport. Actually had a meeting with Richard Blackshaw, who's Stockport Metro head coach there. And I actually had a meeting with him when he was assistant to talk about potentially actually moving up to Stockport and train there. And I also had a meeting with Nova. So at that time, I think it was Jamie Manley, I believe. at Nova. So I had meetings with these people at literally the day after Nationals finished when I was at Mid-Beds. And obviously I still didn't know. Obviously it would have been quite big moves, either moving up to Nottingham or moving to Manchester, Stockport, if at age 14 as well, for the next type of thing. Because where I lived, it was in Bedfordshire. And so you had, what clubs that you had around? You had Modernians, which wasn't better than Mid-Beds. You had Luton, which nothing. And unfortunately in Bedfordshire, the Bedfordshire County Championships were, I will put this out there, the worst county championships in the country. That we had no one. It was pretty much a joke, I believe. But so we were trying to find places around, and obviously it sort of came down to a point of I had to do a decision of where to go, and I was like, well, I better finish school than that where I am. It's probably better off to do that. And actually, my parents spoke with Nick at Hatfield. I never met Nick in my life and all that, so I chose to go to Hatfield because it was 30 minutes away. But when I say 30 minutes away, I live on the A1. You can drive off my front door on the A1 and it's down the A1 at obviously 70 plus to get there in 30 minutes. And so that was the closest performance sort of program I could move to. And that was sort of the decision why. And when I had the meeting with Nick, he outrightly said, I don't coach distance swimmers. And at that point, I was already being pigeonholed as a distance swimmer. And he's like, well, I've never sort of coached him. Obviously, he had people behind his belts like Richard Charlesworth, who had done some distance, Adam Brown, who's obviously the 100 freestyle swimmer, yep. Bobby Cave, 100 breaststroke. And he had quite a few people in his program that had gone through and done very well. And so I decided, well, I went over to him, and it completely changed the way I looked at how I trained in swam. And obviously that was sort of my youth age of growing up. But that was the reason why I moved to Hatfield. As much as most people didn't understand why I might have moved there, it was unfortunately because we lost the coach at Mid-Beds. And you could say, well, why didn't Mid-Beds get a better coach or a different coach? And unfortunately, just in the area it's in, you don't have that pull. Not even the squad. You consider in that squad we had quite a few people. But
Mid-Beds didn't happen after that, did they? Mid-Beds weren't a thing. I don't think.
No, I think the one year. In terms of names I can put across that was at Mid-Beds. We had Jessica Jackson, Shauna Lee, me. I don't know if you guys remember Tom Lambert.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah, he used to be on your.
Gavin Cornane was at Mid-Beds as well. We had quite a few people at Mid-Beds that would do very well, and it was literally just sort of because of Nick and Vix's and Ash's training and how we sort of integrated as a group and did really well that way. But as I said, the one nationals, I think when I was 12, we came second in overall medals in boys, or overall, and well, no one else won any medals. It was just because a couple of individuals did really well and won basically a load of medals, and so you suddenly look as a very good club, but it's actually just a couple of individuals. But yeah.
Cool. All right, I think we'll wrap it up there. Cheers for coming on, Caeleb. Cheers, Josh. Caeleb, do you want to say like where you can find you? I know you offer sort of like some private swimming stuff for people under the Great British Swimming Academy. So do you want to plug that?
Yeah. So in terms of I've sort of started it's like a self-employed contracting role as a freelance swim coach, swim teaching, and all that. I've got a level 2 swim teaching, and I also studied sports coaching at uni. So I decided to just set up this company to offer services around the board. We're going to see where sort of it takes, obviously, after this COVID thing happens and all that, what we can do with it and more on that front. But obviously, if you're looking for any type of swimming advice, swimming coaching in terms of I'm more cater for individuals that are looking for specific things. Like I even do triathlon. If anyone is watching us from triathlon, if we haven't offended you too much,
they will have logged off long ago.
Yeah,
mate. It's
like as much. Yeah, they've gone. But I work around a lot of sports and all that. I normally use my degree to that type of aspect, and where I've trained in terms of open water obviously is very niche. And so if anyone's looking for that, they can find me over at I think it's www.greatbritishswimacademy.com. We're there, and just send me an email or contact me on the list of forms, and we can see what we can do. But apart from that, like obviously, I'd say subscribe to Sonny's channel. He's doing very well. Yeah.
Oh, cheers, mate.
Not too.
Awesome. All right. Thanks for watching. And I guess I'll see you on the next one.